Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're exploring a topic that feels, well, incredibly ordinary in our modern lives, but is actually one of the greatest, most astonishing survival inventions in human history. We're talking about the epic story of clothing. Seriously, how did our ancestors go from naked vulnerability to crafting complex environmental armor? Let's get right into it. I want you to start by stripping away every single modern comfort you have. Imagine waking up in a world with literally no wardrobes, no jackets hanging by the door, no jeans, no stitched shoes, and absolutely no ready-made clothes waiting for you on a rack. Just imagine the freezing cold wind hitting your bare skin, the sun just beating down and burning your back, or the rain completely soaking you. The only thing standing between your highly vulnerable human body and the raw, unyielding force of nature is whatever ancient humans could scrape together with their own two hands. Which leaves us with a massive question. How on earth did humans survive without clothes? Because here's the stark reality. There were no factories, no sewing machines, no metal zippers, no cotton mills, and definitely no tailors. The very first clothes weren't made by fashion designers looking to make a statement, right? They were created by desperate, survival-driven minds just trying to protect life itself. Clothing wasn't a matter of style, it was a life-or-death engineering solution. A necessity for a world where bare skin against brutal nature was pretty much a guaranteed death sentence in harsher climates. Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, the ultimate survival problem. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer biological disadvantage we started with as a species. On one hand, you look at human biology. We don't have thick fur, we don't have protective scales or built-in blubber and insulation like so many other animals. Honestly, we're remarkably exposed. If early humans wanted to migrate into colder regions, they had to solve a massive problem, and fast. And on the other hand, you have ancient engineering. Through relentless observation, experimentation, and a whole lot of trial and error, they looked at the animals around them and realized, hey, animal skins retain heat way better than our bare skin. They figured out that certain plants could be manipulated. They literally engineered their own survival. Which brings us to Section 2, nature's raw materials. When it came to animal resources back then, absolutely nothing went to waste. After a hunt, the meat became food, the bones were transformed into tools, the fat was used as fuel or for treating materials, and the hide, the skin itself, became the foundational material for clothing and shelter. Almost every single part of a hunted animal had a critical purpose. But, as you can imagine, taking a raw, rotting skin and making it wearable was no easy task. Because, you can't just wear raw skin, it rots incredibly fast. So, ancient humans discovered this immense, grueling tanning process. First, they had to scrape away every last bit of flesh and fat. Second, dry or smoke the hide. Third, and here is some true, honestly kind of gross ancient chemistry, they treated the hide with animal fat, plant tannins found in bark and leaves, or even animal brains to keep it from becoming stiff or rotting away. Finally, stretch it and soften it. This incredibly laborious manual process created leather, a strong, durable, flexible material that could withstand extreme conditions. But they didn't just stop at animal hides. Ancient humans also figured out plant fibers, which was an enormous breakthrough. Grass, flax, hemp, nettles, and bark fibers. They realized how to soak plant material in water, beat it, and twist it entirely by hand into thread. Think about how tedious that is. But by processing plants into flexible cloth, humanity opened the door to lighter garments, blankets, wraps, bags, and nets. They weren't just limited to animal products anymore. They could quite literally weave nature into wearable textiles. Moving on to Section 3, the technology of clothes. You see, sewing was actually one of the most vital technological inventions in all of human history. Before it, clothes were just wrapped, tied, or draped over the body. But with sewing, using manual needles painstakingly crafted from bone, antler, shell, or sharpened wood, humans could create actual fitted shapes. Just imagine the pure patience required to make a tiny hole in a tough hide and manually pass a thread through it, all without any modern lighting or machines. Sewing allowed for sleeves, seams, and tight fits that retained heat incredibly well. And just as importantly, it allowed for repair. A torn garment could be fixed, which meant way less waste and significantly better survival odds. And creating these clothes wasn't just some solo hobby, it was an entire skill system. Look at the roles required here. Hunters to get the hides, processors to tan them, designers to cut and sew, and repair specialists to maintain the garments over time. They used scrapers, blades, awls, and stones. These early cloth-making communities were highly specialized. They didn't just buy their clothes off a rack, they earned them through collective effort, deep knowledge of their tools, and incredible intelligence. All right, Section 4, Expanding the Human Mac. And this brilliantly illustrates how clothing quickly became a crucial form of environmental adaptation. In a cold environment, the goal was insulation, putting fur on the inside to trap heat and block the wind. In hot or desert environments, it was all about breathability and managing the harsh sun. In wet areas, water resistance was key. And out in the forest, clothes acted as armor against scratches, insects, and poisonous plants. Because we weren't biologically limited to just one climate, we had to become absolute masters of flexible design. Our clothes adapted so our bodies didn't have to wait for evolution to catch up. Oh, and we absolutely have to give a massive shout out to footwear, which is truly the unsung hero of civilization. Simple hide wraps or woven plant sandals protected early human feet from sharp stones, frozen ground, and thorns. It sounds so basic to us now, right? But protecting our feet drastically improved our ability to travel, hunt, and migrate. The invention of shoes quite literally expanded the map of human possibility. It allowed us to endure harsher places and live so much more actively. This takes us to Section 5, the birth of fashion. I absolutely love this quote. Clothes slowly became not only protection, but also communication. Because as societies grew more complex, a plain piece of hide wasn't just to keep the freezing wind off your back anymore. It began to signal who you were. Clothing started to communicate a person's rank, their tribe, their wealth, their age, their occupation, or even their spiritual significance. The human body basically became a living canvas of cultural meaning. And just think about how they achieved this astonishing visual power. They used symbolic embellishments. They added bones, shells, animal teeth, and feathers to their garments. And even more impressively, they discovered how to use pigments and plant dyes to create striking colors: red, black, yellow, brown, and blue. Imagine being an early human who had only ever seen the plain, natural tones of raw hides and suddenly encountering someone in a brightly dyed, decorated garment. That visual power of coloring cloth transformed simple survival gear into beautiful, meaningful, ceremonial fashion way before the modern industry ever existed. But, beneath the fashion was always a profound sense of social responsibility, deeply rooted in community cooperation. Producing clothing meant shared labor. It meant seasonal planning, making sure you had heavy fur prepared before winter hit and lighter materials ready for summer. Most importantly, it meant protecting the vulnerable. Babies needed warmth to survive. Elders needed protection from environmental stress. Making clothes was a literal way of ensuring family continuity. Every garment carried the invisible, loving labor of the people who made it to keep their group alive across generations. And the archaeology absolutely proves it. Finding ancient bone needles, tools for scraping hides, and fossilized fiber impressions tells us that our ancestors were not the crude, bumbling caveman stereotypes we sometimes see in pop culture. Far from it. They were highly inventive problem solvers. They were the brilliant engineers of their time. Every hem, seam, and weave in your closet today has a direct ancestry stretching all the way back to these brilliant minds who quite literally had to invent warmth from scratch. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. Every single time you get dressed, you aren't just putting on fabric. You are wearing the result of thousands of years of human brilliance, survival, and technological evolution. You're wearing a layer that changed the future of our species forever. So, considering all of that incredible history, what will your clothes communicate today? Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the source material. Stay curious, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.